evening, Toccoa First family. Welcome back to this series of devotional videos. It's Tuesday, March 31st. I've told you in the past about the crazy recurring dreams that I often have and how they're usually related to my academic life. I'm back in high school, I'm back in college, only this time things are not going well for me. For example, in one dream, I'm back at Georgia Tech, and there's a class that I'm enrolled in, only I've been blowing it off all semester. Maybe I went to the first couple of classes, but now, all of a sudden, it's time for the final exam, and I have no idea what's going on. And I don't even remember where the classroom is, where the class meets. I have to ask someone. And I'm pretty sure this is a common nightmare because I actually saw it portrayed on an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the late 90s. So that's one of my recurring nightmares. Another one is like this. I get a call from an assistant principal at my old high school, and she tells me that there was a mix-up in my high school transcript, and it turns out that, because of some kind of error, I didn't actually earn all the credits that I needed to earn in order to graduate. And so I have to go back to my high school and take some classes in order to earn my high school diploma. Yeah, that's right. A 50-year-old back in high school. Nothing weird about that. But oh, by the way, if I don't do it, she says, then my high school is going to call Georgia Tech and Emory University, and they're going to revoke my degrees. Well, you get the idea. I mean, it's easy enough to go online and read about dream interpretations and see what's really going on below the surface of my subconscious. Yes, I am afraid. That's what these dreams mean. They mean that I'm afraid. And in the wake of this pandemic, I often wake up feeling afraid. I mean, not terrified, not panicked, just a low-grade kind of anxiety. Maybe you do too. And I want someone in those moments to pat me on the back and tell me that my fears are justified, that this pandemic is an unprecedented crisis in the history of our country. So it's completely understandable that I feel this way. There, Brent, it's okay to be afraid. I'm sorry, is it okay to be afraid? Jesus tells us repeatedly in the Gospels that it is not okay to be afraid. In fact, he gives us a command not to be afraid. It's a gentle command, but it is a command of Jesus. And yet I often break this command without giving it a second thought. Listen to some of Jesus' own words. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Matthew 6:25. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father, but even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. Matthew 10:29-31. Or how about these words from the Apostle Paul? Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Philippians 4:6. So being afraid is really a problem for us Christians. I realize that we don't have much control over fleeting emotions. Fear, to some extent, is an emotion. Often we feel what we feel, and there's nothing we can do about it. Yet I'm reminded of something that Martin Luther said 500 years ago about a different emotion, lust. But these words apply also to fear. Listen to what he said. You cannot keep birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from building a nest in your hair. We may not be able to control an initial feeling of fear that we have. I may not be able to control that feeling of fear that I have in the pit of my stomach when I wake up. But we all can be sure to prevent these feelings from building a nest in our hair. And if we let a feeling build a nest in our hair, well, we can be sure that that feeling has crossed over and become something else. It has become nothing less than a sin. And this sin of fear, like other sins, represents a lack of faith. We forget that our Heavenly Father is taking care of us, or we don't really believe that He is, or we don't trust that He knows what's best for us, or we don't trust that He can run the universe as well as we believe that we can. Just yesterday, I was reflecting on the first chapter of Proverbs, and I was struck by verses 20 to 22. Let me read them for you now. Wisdom calls out in the streets. She shouts loudly in the plazas. At the head of the noisy streets, she calls. In the entrances of the gates in the city, she utters her words. How long will you simpletons love naivete? How long have mockers delighted in mockery? And how long will fools hate knowledge? Notice, the voice of wisdom here is personified as a woman who cries out in a noisy street. She shouts loudly. She stands at the city gates and speaks where everyone can see her and hear her. The point is, she's not hiding. She's not being subtle. What she asks us to do is perfectly clear. It's no mystery. It's no secret. The question is, are we willing to listen to her and to do what she says? Do we think it's worth it? Now, let's apply these words to this sin or this feeling of fear. When I wake up feeling anxious, after having had a fearful dream or read something in the news, if I choose, I can easily let these feelings take control of me. I can let them rob me of my joy. I can let them prevent me from being thankful and filled with praise to God for giving me this new day of life that He has designed for me. I can choose that if I want. I can reach for my smartphone. I can read the scary headlines. I can read the fearful Facebook posts. I can read the terrifying tweets and start to feel afraid and start to feel hopeless. But the alternative to doing that, the alternative to living with this kind of fear, is as clear as that woman at the city gates, shouting loudly in the streets to all who pass by. And she, this voice of wisdom, is saying something like this, which we need to hear. She's saying, open this book. Read its God-breathed words. Read its promises. Commit them to memory and recite them to yourself. Remind yourself of who you are as God's beloved son or daughter. And pray. And as you pray, believe that the Creator of the universe, who knows you and loves you more than you can imagine, has the power to take away this fear. And He wants to take away your fear because, after all, He didn't give you a spirit of fear. He gave you a spirit of power and love and self-control. Claim this promise for yourself. Now, granted, it takes work to do that. It's easier to let the devil dictate your feelings to you. to whisper into your spirit all the reasons you have to be afraid, to justify your feelings to yourself and say, I can't do anything about it. I'm powerless over fear. It is what it is. No,